What's up, Weez? Welcome back to another 3 game review. It's been a while. I think it's been around 3 weeks, maybe a month since the last one. I've taken my time with these next 3 games, and it's a little unfair because they're kind of short. They were kind of short games, but from this point forward on, for the next 3 games or any other games after that, I will be streaming these games on Twitch, on my Twitch right here, Bipolar Bear One, because everything's taken. Bipolar Bear's always taken. But yeah, from here on out, I'm gonna try to get these videos out a little bit faster. I'm not gonna say super quick, because also depending on the games I play. But I will be streaming them on Twitch from here onwards, I guess is the way to say it. But I hope you enjoy this one, and let me know if there's any other games you want me to play in the comments down below. Make sure to like if you like it, subscribe if you're new, and I will catch you guys later. Tales of Kenzara Zhao is this Metroidvania side-scrolling action game that is very good. It is a very good game. It is based in African Bantu mythology, which I'm kind of noticing I did 2 mythology games this time, but it doesn't really matter. This game follows Zubadi, I believe his name is, Zuberi, as he reads this story his father wrote about Zhao, this boy who wanted to save his father from death itself. So he partners with Kalunga, the god of death, to find and fight and kill these 3 great spirits in a deal to bring his father back to life. And so this is the journey of Zhao throughout this story, and it was about a 7 to 8 hour playthrough, and you meet some really good characters. Like Liana is one of the first characters you meet. She's a very charming character. I think it was very, very fun the way they used her in this story. But I think this game was incredibly well done. Looks beautiful, played fairly well. If you have played any of the older Prince of Persia games, I know I said this is a Metroidvania game, but it really felt like Prince of Persia, like Sands of Time and before, for this, where you have these 2 masks. You have the moon mask, which is your projectile attacks. I really like how they do this, where they split your fighting styles into these masks. You have the moon mask, which is your projectiles, the sun mask, which is your melees, and they each have their own individual skill trees where you get to choose what you want and play how you want. And I think it worked very well. The combat is very good. There are some, like lackluster enemies to fight in this game, but I do think you can get around it pretty easily if you do know how to go through your combat. And I think it makes it a little bit challenging depending on who you're fighting and what kind of combinations of enemies you're fighting. But I think the game did the story very well. A very emotionally heavy game, but very, very good. I cannot give this game enough praise. I think this is one of the best games I've played recently. I'm gonna gas this game up a lot. I think you really should play this game. I think this game has so much good going for it. I think the time they take to tell the story is just enough. I think the 7 to 8 hour mark was just like a perfect fit for that, for the game. I think all the story bits and beats they take throughout the entire game are like perfectly hit. I think once you realize what's going on in that section of the game, it all comes full circle and does exactly what it needs to do. And I think the way this game handles it is very, very good. I think some of the turning points of this game are handled very well, and the emotional drops they do in here are really, really heavy. And I just can't praise this game enough. I do really think you should play Zhao. I do think you should give this game a shot, even if it's on sale or if you can find it free somewhere. I think if you have the PlayStation Plus premium package, you can download Zhao for free. So I encourage you to try this game out. It was very good, and I kind of want to play it again. So I finally finished Sandland. This took me a while, but it is done. Took me around the 28 hour mark, but I gotta say, I have very mixed feelings about this game. This is one of Akira Toriyama's projects, so it is a GOAT work, I will say. But it had a slow start. If you have played like older JRPGs, like an older Dragon Quest or like Chrono Trigger or something, you can feel the datedness of this project. There is a lot of traversing that kind of is a little bit better with the vehicle system that they have, which is very fun, I will say. But there's this like presence you can feel of like 90s RPGs in it. And not to say that it's a bad thing, but it's definitely a thing that you will notice and you will see and you really feel it. And to give it its credit, I will say the combat is very shallow, not very layered, but it has some good points. The vehicle combat is definitely the best thing in it, and the story is very good in the second half. I think the first half of the story is, I don't want to say boring, but as a video game, I do want to say boring. Sandland came out, the game came out around the same time as the anime. The anime version of this first half of the story, very, very reminiscent of original Dragon Ball. There's so many beats you find in it. There's so many like references you can find in it. The dang motorcycle in the game is just Bulma's motorcycle. It's so sick. There's so many things you see in this game that are just like remnants of Dragon Ball. It feels really good, and you can really feel it in the first half of the story. The second half of the story is where a lot of the action takes place, and I think they do it very well. I think it's a very good finisher for a game. I think the last, I want to say 8-9 hours of the game were probably the best part of the game. And that's not to say that the first majority of the game was bad. It's just, it was a little slow for the size of the RPG they wanted to make it. I think if they kind of condensed it a little bit more, or they made it a little faster pace, it would have helped it a lot. But the game is still very good. I think this game is solid. I think this game is worth the play. I don't know if I would call it worth the full price. I would say probably wait for a sale. But I do think it is a good game, and I do think it is a piece of Toriyama's history that if you are a fan of Akira Toriyama, you are going to definitely have to either play the game or watch the anime, even read the manga. It's a very good piece of media. I just think they tried to capture the 80s and 90s RPG feel a little too much for such a modern game that it is. Raji: An Ancient Epic is a indie platform action adventure game that takes place in the Hindi mythology. And I gotta say, for how short of a game it was a really enjoyable playthrough. It took about a day. It took me about 5 to 6 hours to get through. But I would say the story itself was really enjoyable. There are some gripes I have about it that we'll talk about later on. But the gameplay, I feel like, was a little shallow in what they wanted versus how long you play through it. But we can talk about that in a little bit. Let me give a little overview of the game. The game is about Raji and Golu, a brother and sister that are traveling. I believe they're circus performers. And during one of their trips, these demonic beings come out and they kidnap Golu. And Raji, sets out to go try to rescue Golu from these demons. And she gets blessed with weapons from the god Vishnu and the goddess Durga. And they help her and kind of guide her along the way through I think there's 5 levels in the game. They're pretty extensive levels themselves, but there's 5 of them. And you go through fighting different demons and different bosses, trying to look for your brother in different areas. And you obviously get your different weapons throughout the way. But I think the game is very enjoyable. I think if you find yourself wanting to play this game, it's maybe 1 or 2 sit downs depending on how long you play. If you want to take a whole weekend, that makes sense. But I think it's an enjoyable play. But I do have some gripes about the game. I think the combat is a little shallow for what they give you. They give you a pretty good spread of weapons. With, I think the first weapon you get is a spear, and then you get a bow, sword, and shield, and then this kind of like frisbee disc type deal that you control. I think it's really cool. You control where it goes by pointing where you move, as well as pressing the attack button. And I think it's a really cool concept of a weapon, but you get it very, very late in the game. I'm talking, you get it directly before the final boss of the game. So it's a little it's a little lackluster when you get there, but there is a new game plus where you can play again with it. And the skill trees in the game has this nice customizability that allows you to choose, like what kind of element you want to use for the weapon, what each element does. Like most of the game, I used the fire element, where each hit had a chance to engulf the enemy in flames, spawn a fireball that bounces and ricochets between all the enemies, and summons a meteorite that lands on the enemies. And they're kind of about the same for each other element, which is lightning and ice. But I think for everything that they give you for the combat itself is kind of shallow. It's kind of this wave-based area combat that you get when you move along in the level, and you'll get into an area, fight a couple enemies, kind of like that Devil May Cry God of War style, where each area just blocks you off and you fight some enemies, kind of like any other action adventure game. But they feel like they go very quick. Once you get the combat down, the combat goes very quickly, and it kind of doesn't give you a chance to really explore the combat that it can provide you. And I kind of think that's one of the downfalls for the gameplay aspect of the game. But other than that, I mean, visually, it's a beautiful game. The scenery they choose, the locations they choose for each level. There's a jungle, there's a desert, there's this like vast water irrigation city-like place that is really cool. I think they do a really good job at choosing the visuals for this game, and I think a lot of the enemies and a lot of the gods look really cool in this game. But when you really get into the combat is really the biggest problem I have with this game. Other than that, I think the story from start to the finale does very good. I think it is a very good game from start to, I want to say 95%. I think the ending kind of, I don't want to say fails, but kind of leaves it open-ended to a point where you can't even figure out what happens or even come to a decision of what happens. Like I would call it open-ended, but I feel like there's not a really good way to call it open-ended, if you get what I'm saying, where something happens and you can't really decide if it was a good or bad thing. But I do think it was still a fun game to experience, and I think the 5 to 6 hours I took to play it was really worth it. And I think if you do want to try it, I think you should give it a try. It was very fun, and I would say give this one a shot if you're thinking about it.